At the Hopkins County GOP President's Day Candidate Forum and Dinner, we were very thankful to have Pat Fallon, our congressman from the 4th Congressional District, come and speak to us. Speakers were introduced by Brent Barkley.
Can you hear me? Hello. I walked in the room and I saw a packed house. That gives me hope. Thank you for being here. We got to keep Texas. Amen. You know? Amen. Because, you know, you go up to Washington, it is swampy, I don't like it. As soon as we're done voting, remember the old cartoons where they would go, it would be dust? As soon as I'm done voting, that's what's in my chair. Dust. I'm going to go back to Texas. The free state of. But I'm talking to you about three things. First is, you know, I talked to a European friend of mine, and he's fascinated with American politics, and he wanted me to describe in 30 seconds or less what the difference between the Republican and Democratic parties were. And I said, one loves the country and wants to establish a meritocracy that will thrive, and the other, it focuses on the word envy. And if somebody wins, somebody else has to lose, and they're jealous. And they put America last. I personally think that's the case. It's unfortunate. But I wanted to visit with you today about three things. First, because it shows the differences between the parties. The border. It makes perfect sense for any nation state to secure their border, to regulate who comes in, and then you're welcome to leave because we're an open and free society. Think about our greatest geopolitical competitor, China. Does China have an immigration problem? Are people around the world saying, man, how do I sneak in? As President Trump would say, to China. No! And well, there's one country that people actually sneak into China from, and it's North Korea. Because there's actually less liberty in that nation than there is in China. Normally those folks that make it to China, that's not their final destination, because just like a river will always find its way to the sea, human beings flow toward liberty and away from tyranny. Being a Cold War child, did anybody go west to east? The flow is east to west, except for Lee Harvey Oswald. You see how that turned out. The worst January in our history of illegal migrants coming to the country was in December, over 300,000. To put that in context, in fiscal year 2017, we had 300,000 for the entire year, not for a month. So by that definition, it's 12 times worse. So when Alejandro Mayorkas, under oath, says that the border is no less secure than it has been in prior administrations, that is a direct quote, he is lying. And I can prove it to you. Not only with that, but then think about during the Trump administration's first 3 years, there was 1.7 million people, or 1.7 million illegal encounters on the border. Under Joe Biden, in that same time frame, it was 8.5 million. That is not the same, that's not even close. Chinese nationals, most of which military-aged men. Under President Trump, his last year in office was 450 crossed the border. Last year it was over 50,000. You think they all want to do us well? Do you think that there are just a few, maybe 1%, that are actually truly sleeper agents that will be activated, let's say, when China decides to invade Taiwan and we go to war? Of course. But Joe Biden doesn't care. The rest of his cronies and croons that are working for him and sycophants are sticking their head in the collective woke sand. I don't care if you are a local elected official, state, federal, or you're the President of the United States. Our most important job is to keep our citizens safe and protect that Constitution. Unlike what the liberals say, this is not a living and breathing document. This one's dead. Okay? It was written, and we have to interpret the words on that page and live by those. Because our rights not only come from that paper, but they come from the Almighty as well. So you can see on the border, when there's 170 countries represented by people that have crossed that border, when in the last 20 years we had never had a month of over 200,000 illegal encounters, we have had 20 of those months under the Biden administration. Do you think they're really committed to securing the border? Obviously not, and the proof is in the details. And it's a willful and deliberate skirting of the laws. The laws say, the Immigration and Nationality Act says, you will be detained until we either let you in the country because your asylum claim is approved, or we will detain you until we figure that out, or we will detain you until we deport you. Any of those things. Walls work. Are there walls and fences around the White House? Yeah. How about Joe Biden's beach house in Delaware? Chuck Schumer's mansion in New York? Hakeem Jeffries' place in the city? How about Noah and Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco? If you want to have sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, then the illegals can go to your sanctuary city and your sanctuary state. And then I asked this bum that I was addressing down in the Oversight Committee, this minority witness for the Democrats, he was talking about compassion. I said, well, you're a compassionate man. You said so in your opening testimony. Yes. How many migrants do you have living in your home? 0. I said, that's what I thought. That's the same number that are living in the homes of all the Democratic representatives in the House and the Senate. 0. They're hypocrites. If they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. That's fact, Jack. Mitzi Mother knows. I'm looking at it right now. All right, talk about energy policy. We had something called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That is, just like it sounds, if there's an act of God, national emergency, time of war, we have up to 695 million barrels we had under President Trump in case of emergency. You know, one glass, break glass in case of emergency, boom. Joe Biden drew it down by over 50% because he was trying to depress the price of gasoline before the midterm elections in November of 2022. That had never happened before in our history. That endangers our nation for clearly political reasons. China has almost 1 billion barrels in their reserve, and our economy is larger. It's about keeping us safe and doing what's in America's best interest. Another thing is, Putin invades Ukraine 2 years ago, and a lot of the European countries were getting their natural gas from Russia. And it's a lot cheaper to get your natural gas from somebody that can supply it via pipeline rather than liquefy it and ship it to you. So they're not buying the gas anymore. And so our exports went up. And that's a good thing for everybody. It's a good thing for our country. It's a good thing for our European allies. And the number one destination for liquefied natural gas from the United States is Europe. What did Joe Biden just do last month? He refused to issue any more permits for us to export any liquefied natural gas. That is a gift to Vladimir Putin. And yet today in Fox Business, they asked me about it. It said, well, Donald Trump said that if you don't pay your fair share of NATO, that Putin could go ahead and invade you. I said he didn't literally mean that he wants Putin to invade countries. He wants them to pay up because 20 out of the 31 NATO countries don't pay the 2% at least of their GDP for military defense. And I said, furthermore, who gave the gift to Putin? I'm going to end with this because my time's up. I was talking to, when you are sitting in front of a historical figure and they ask you, you've got a question, ask him. President Trump did that a couple of years ago. And he said, I said, well, here's President Trump. In Georgia, in 2007, Vladimir Putin invaded Georgia, country of Georgia, took 2 provinces. And that was under George W. Bush. 2014, he stole all the Korea that was under Obama. And then, of course, full-scale invasion under Biden in 2022. But under 4 years you were in office, he didn't do anything. Why do you think that is? And he literally said, looking in the eyes, he says, I told him, I said, Vladimir, you cannot invade Ukraine. You can't do it. No. I know you did it, you're doing loud enough. I have to come for you, Vlad, and I don't want to do it. He said, Pat, I think you can leave me like 5%. But then he said, you know what I would have done had he invaded Ukraine? Is I would have unleashed the American energy sector in historical capacity, unlike nothing anyone has ever seen. And natural gas and oil are global commodities that would have depressed the price of oil to such a degree that Vladimir Putin could not have funded his war in Ukraine in the first place. And I think Vladimir Putin knew that. That is, ladies and gentlemen, projecting strength, saying we're the United States of America. We're not Albania, we're not Iran, we're not Russia, and we're not Chile. We're the United States. We're still the strongest and most powerful country in the world, and you will act accordingly, or you will suffer our wrath. That's called deterrence. Thank you very much. Love you all. When I'm in McCollum County, most of McCollum County is not in our congressional district, and there's a group this big, I always often tell people, hey, I love everybody here. And then I ask them, who here lives in congressional district 4? And then a spattering of hands goes up, and I always tell them, I love y'all just a little bit more. We have a special presentation, and the recipient does not know about this, and I just want to explain to you very quickly, and then I'm going to exit stage left. Congress has something called the Congressional Medal of Freedom, but very few Americans ever get it. There's years that go by that nobody gets it. And so there is now a new program called the Congressional Patriot Award. It's a very rare and prestigious award. Ultimately, less than 1/1000th of 1% of all Americans will ever even receive this. And it is designed to be either an award for the Lifetime Achievement Award for being a great American, and or for exceptional achievement. Or something, it's like you say, like a police officer saves a life, or a firefighter, etc. And they give us some, it's very rare. And then we have a district of almost 900,000 people now because we grow so rapidly. And there's thousands of deserving people. I only get medals in the dozens, so it's very, very rare. But the first recipient is somebody that has always put country and community before himself. I don't think this event would go off without a hitch like it has, and having a full room people that love this country have awarded for this gentleman. And I want to award the very first Congressional Patriot Award in Hopkins County to Donnie Wisenbaker. And there's where's the medal? Over here. This is rarer than a Super Bowl ring. And on the back it says, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I think that's folks, thanks again. You know what? Let's keep putting America first.
Donnie was awarded the first Congressional Patriot Award of 2024 by Pat Fallon, in case the audio was not too good during that section. Congratulations, Donnie.